said he's blown his vocal components. I guess that makes me the new leader.
The new Transformers comic series created by Daniel Warren Johnson and published by Skybound is perhaps the best Transformers content in years, especially compared to the terrible legacy left behind by Michael Bay
I am directly below the enemy scrotum
and the lackluster Transformers Rise of the Beast film that released last year. So far, 13 issues have been released and I've enjoyed every one until now. The most recent one, issue 13, has left me a little disappointed. It seems that the curse behind the unlucky 13 number strikes again in the month of Halloween. Now before you call me a hater or whatever, let me just remind you again that I love this series. Such a fact is easily proven if you take a look at my channel. Multiple videos and shorts have been published where I glaze the series.
That is one big pile of shit.
Now for the first time, I do have some criticisms. In this video, I'm going to summarize the story and offer my critique as we go along, so sit back and enjoy. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more. Also, I just wanted to let you know that I'm creating my own comic which takes place in a world dominated by dragons where humans are forced to live underground. However, small groups of augmented warriors known as dragon hunters brave the surface and fight off the dragon hordes, hoping one day to reclaim the world. If you like, please join my Patreon to help support it and get additional details. On there, I'll share pages when they're complete ahead of time and share the behind the scenes content such as scripts and storyboards. Now, back to the video. The first page starts with a flashback to issue 7 when Soundwave challenged Starscream to a fight for the leadership position. Long story short, Starscream lost badly.
Stop! He's already dead!
Now one of the things that I noticed right off the bat was a slight change in art style. If you didn't know, the series has actually changed artists again. For issues 1 to 6, the artist was Daniel Warren Johnson. Issues 7 to 12 was Jorge Corona, and now it's Jason Howard. Daniel and Jorge had a pretty similar art style and the change wasn't noticeable, but this one is kinda different. This new one seems to be a little bit cleaner and less detailed, but still overall quite good. The only real criticism of this page is a strange pose of Soundwave. His body and right leg are contorted strangely and unnaturally. It's not really a big deal, but it's something that I noticed. Also, just to clarify, the art isn't really my real concern with this issue. It's more to do with the story and the pacing, so I won't spend too much time criticizing the art. After being thrown over the cliff by Soundwave, Starscream lies at the bottom, repeating that Starscream is his name. Immediately after, we hear the name Ulchtar. The next page skips to the past, Starscream's past to be exact. He's working on something, but his friend Genvo comes rushing in and tells him to leave it and come outside already. Something is coming and they can't miss it. Now this issue establishes that Starscream worked as a scientist before joining the Decepticons, which is actually similar to his backstory in the old G1 cartoon. We also hear Genvo call Starscream by the name Ulchtar, the name that we heard on the first page. Turns out that this was his original name, but I don't really want to pronounce it, so I'll just call him Starscream going forward. Genvo tells Starscream that the thing that they need to see only comes once every 200 years. While they're talking, Jetfire also arrives, telling the two that it's his last night on Cybertron, and that they should make it a night to remember. Starscream agrees to put his work on hold and join them. Now one thing you'll notice is that Starscream has blue eyes, similar to Jetfire, but their friend Genvo has red eyes and a Decepticon insignia on his chest. Judging by this, we know that Starscream hasn't joined the Decepticons yet, and that the war hasn't spread across the entire planet, because neutral parties such as Starscream and Jetfire are still allowed to live peacefully among the different factions. Also, by his happy and calm nature, we can deduce that this is before Starscream becomes his usual sociopathic and evil self. Afterward, they fly over to a moon base to get a sight of, well, whatever seems to come every 200 years. While they wait, they begin to discuss the fighting that's happening on Cybertron. Starscream mentions that he hasn't really heard much about it, and that his brothers are refusing to join his side. By his brothers, he's most likely referencing Thundercracker and Skywarp. And if it's true that Thundercracker and Skywarp are his brothers, then that makes what Starscream did to Skywarp in issue 4 even more messed up. Spoiler, he tore Skywarp apart to turn him into a computer. Genvo, who's already picked a side, encourages him to join the Decepticons. He talks about his great leader and mentions that when you join us, we would make an incredible team. Jetfire mentions that he won't be picking sides and will instead explore the universe with the maps that Starscream has created. Perhaps he can find a way to save their race without the need for fighting. I would assume that he needs to be looking for a new source of energy. This page establishes that Cybertron is already dying before the major fighting even begins, and the Decepticons and the Autobots are fighting each other over how to solve it. We don't know why the planet is dying, but assume that it'll be answered later. Right after this, a bunch of insect boss show up and Genvo tries to kill them, only to be stopped by Starscream. It seems that he values the lives of lesser beings, not something that he would do in issue 1, that's for sure. This again reinforces that this is a kinder and gentler Starscream, before he snapped and became a merciless killer. Right after what they're waiting for arrives, they look up and see Omega Supreme flying by. This double page splash is well done and one of my favorite scenes in the entire series. It looks really nice, is well drawn, and I love the perspective. Starscream here mentions how he never knew that they were so big, implying that there are guardians other than Omega. Or perhaps Omega's pronouns are they, I'm not exactly sure. But Starscream seems to get upset and decides to fly to the local weapons depot of the Cybertron Defense Force. They blow past the one guard who I think is Cup, then blow up the depot to get the attention of Omega Supreme. Starscream really wants to be noticed. They succeed and get Omega Supreme's attention. They wave at him and he waves back at them. Okay, this scene is kind of out of left field. Just in the previous scene, Starscream was shown to be gentle and kind, but all of a sudden he blows up a government weapons dump just to wave at Omega. Starscream didn't want to kill an insect 2 pages ago, but then risks killing multiple people including his friends when he blows up a bunch of ammunition. I'll be honest, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. Also, this place only has one guard for some reason. I feel like Cup is probably the type of guy that sleeps on the job and clocks in 8 hours a day, but leaves early. Anyhow, another weird thing is that Jetfire, who is perhaps the most responsible of the three, doesn't really seem to mind what Starscream just did. Like, imagine this, a celebrity like Ariana Grande is going by, and one of her fans blows up a gas station to get her attention. Like, that would be insane. The police would arrive and the person would be arrested. And if it was a military base, there would be more than one guard, and they would have a secure airspace where Starscream would be shot down before he could get anywhere close to them.
That's my Air Force right there, buddy.
But whatever, it's a little bit contrived for the plot's purpose. However, I do like the overall idea of Starscream wanting to be noticed, because we usually see him as wanting to be seen as something great, to be at the center of attention and have a position of respect above the others. But I feel that this example that we see in the comic is a little bit extreme for the characterization that we get in the previous panels. Again, a life-loving Starscream all of a sudden committing a terrorist attack seems like a little rushed. Also, the comic doesn't really tell us where Omega Supreme is coming from, but because he only passes by every 200 years, I think it's safe to assume that he was exploring the cosmos, perhaps searching for more energy or something else. I'm not sure, but hopefully it'll be explained later. The three then meet up on a roof and Jetfire says his final goodbye. He can't really stay any longer because Cybertron is on the edge of demise, and he needs to find a solution in the stars. Jetfire then flies off and Starscream mentions that he's going to miss him. Genvo tells him not to worry as he still has him. By the way, in this panel, Starscream's eyes have actually turned red all of a sudden. I don't really think this is intentional because his eyes are blue again in the next panel. They don't turn red again until the end of the issue. Just a small art error that I noticed. Genvo then begins to walk away and all of a sudden there's a giant explosion. Out of nowhere, Genvo is joined by Shockwave and what looks like Blitzwing, and they rush to battle. Are they attacking somebody or being attacked? I can't really tell. Starscream all of a sudden gets shot in the back but is helped by Genvo. They both attempt to run to safety and Genvo mentions that they came out of nowhere, so it's safe to assume that they're the ones being attacked. But I still don't understand how Shockwave and Blitzwing arrived immediately out of nowhere to help. Now I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a completely different scene because there isn't really a proper transition between the pages, no indication that time has passed or anything. So it really appears that Genvo literally just walks off in that direction and right into a major battle, especially because the location is similar and Genvo himself kind of appears to be holding a gun in the last panel. I don't know, I'm a little bit confused. The rush pacing sometimes makes it hard to know how much time has passed. Genvo then gets shot in the chest and dies in Starscream's arms. But before he goes, he says his last words. He tells Starscream that he did it. He yelled at the gods. He screamed at the stars to see them, which is a reference to the terrorist attack that Starscream just did to get Omega Supreme's attention. And well, this is the origin of Starscream's name. Honestly, the death of Genvo is very rushed. It's a little bit forced how his last words are that you screamed at the stars into seeing us, and somehow Starscream decides to put the words star and scream together to form a new name. I mean, why didn't he just call himself God Yell? I don't know, this whole scene is really rushed, contrived, and doesn't really feel all that natural. Like, we don't really see much of their relationship and everything moves so quickly that it's hard to keep track of what is happening. I guess this scene is supposed to reveal the death of Genvo is why Starscream is so ruthless towards Autobots because he wants vengeance for his friend's death, but I just don't think Genvo had enough screen time to really hit it home. Maybe if we had another issue with him, we could have had a longer time to form a bond with this character so that we could better understand Starscream's rage. But I don't know, we just need a little bit more time to cook. Next we see an angry looking Optimus holding a gun and leading the charge, most likely the one who shot Genvo, and the more brutal Optimus of the past that was first mentioned by Elita 1 in issue number 12. Right after this, we skip back to the modern day where Starscream is lying in a volcano. He loses his legs in the lava but manages to crawl away, kinda like Anakin Skywalker in a way. Some members of Cobra or Mars show up to extract him. Honestly, I didn't really care about this scene. I don't really care about G.I. Joe and none of these characters seem interesting to me. Their fat leader just whines and cries about how his dad was a legend but he's relegated to a salvage crew or something. It seems like they want Starscream to study or rebuild. I don't know, please don't explain this in the comments. I hate the addition of G.I. Joe in the Rise of the Beast film and I really don't like it here either. We then skip back to the past where Starscream is carrying Genvo's body. He ponders on what he will do next. His two friends are gone and now he's alone. Wait, hold up. Where's Jetfire? The explosion started right after he flew away. Why didn't he come back? If Omega Supreme could notice an explosion from far away, why couldn't Jetfire? Like the fighting started a minute after he left. Was Jetfire a double agent? Okay, I don't think that's true. Honestly, this kind of adds to the fact that maybe those two scenes are actually a couple of days apart, even though it doesn't really indicate it. Also, another thing that's weird is in the first issue, Jetfire calls Starscream, well, Starscream. He doesn't use his original name. This is actually kind of weird because Jetfire left before he changed his name. So, wouldn't it make more sense for Jetfire to call him Ultar in the first issue? I mean, Jetfire refers to him as a friend and is shocked by his brutality, meaning that he isn't really familiar with the changes that Starscream has gone through. I don't know, this was like a thought that I had. Anyways, Megatron soon arrives and invites Starscream to join him and get revenge for his friend. Megatron then transforms into a tank gun that Starscream was holding in his hand. I'm guessing the creator couldn't decide between a gun or a tank model, so they just went with both. I don't really dig this design. The whole gun thing was always a little bit silly and didn't make sense. I feel like Megatron is the type of character that would want to be big and intimidating and pack a lot of firepower like a tank. I think it would have been better to stick with the tank concept. Also, him having tank treads doesn't really make a lot of sense in the gun form. I mean, is it possible that he could be a triple changer? Maybe. I guess we'll have to see. He then asks Starscream for his name, and this is where he gets called Starscream for the first time. Also, his eyes turn red for evil. Well, that was issue number 13, and like I said before, I'm a little bit disappointed. The art style is still pretty good overall, but the pacing and the contrived nature of the plot kind of threw me off. We jump from scene to scene where things just happen and don't really make a lot of sense. For example, Starscream goes from being nice and good and loving fragile life to immediately blowing up a weapons depot and becoming evil in the end. Genevieve himself gets very little character development, but is supposed to be a major plot point for the development of Starscream. I mean, it just would have been better if we had gotten more character moments between him and Starscream. And also, I think it would have been more interesting to hear them debate more about the war and their overall opinions and philosophy about it. Maybe if Genwo had explained why he joined it, it would have offered more inspiration for Starscream to follow in his path. And also, that final attack felt very random and out of nowhere, especially Shockwave and Blitzwing just making a random appearance. Also, it would have been better if we had gotten a proper explanation for what Jetfire was looking for and what Omega Supreme has been doing. Maybe more background around the situation of Cybertron and why it's dying. Again, it would have been better if this story was told over 2 issues. More time to flesh out characters and explain the current situation of Cybertron and make the scenes flow a lot better, instead of things just happening at a breakneck pace. Because right now, I don't really care about Genvo. He doesn't really matter to me. It makes it harder to understand Starscream. Also, the name, like, come on. Genvo says something cheesy like he screamed at the stars. That was kind of random and contrived in my opinion. Honestly, I don't really think Starscream needed an origin for his name. It kind of reminds me of how Han Solo got an origin for his name in the Solo film. Look, I get it. People want meaning behind names, and Starscream's name now represents the loss of his friend Genvo. And that is interesting, but again, it would have been better if Genvo meant more to the reader. I do appreciate them giving Starscream a backstory where he's originally good but then turns bad because of his personal experiences. It does add more layers to his character and makes him a tragic figure. Having someone cherish life and be loving but then transform into something ugly because of war and loss is very intriguing. It's better than just saying that he was always like this, but again, it needed more time to cook to really bring it home. As I said before, the art style is still really good. It does look a little bit different, but Jason Howard does overall mimic the style of Daniel and Jorge pretty well. I don't really have too many complaints in that field like I said before. Overall, I'll still like this series and I hope that things do slow down. Now, I know that Daniel Warren Johnson intends to leave the series after issue number 24, so I am hoping that he doesn't rush things too much to get his story complete before that. But I guess we'll have to see. Anyhow, those were my overall opinions on the issue. I hope this doesn't get me banished into the hater realm and that others understand my opinions. Anyways, if that bothered you for far too long, please like, subscribe, and comment below on what you thought about the issue, and let me know.